Hey everybody, it's David from David in Progress. So we talk about financial independence and retiring early from the perspective of someone who's actually doing it. What if you could access your retirement savings, your 401k, before 59 and a half with no tax penalty? Wouldn't that be amazing? Well, that's what I want to talk to you about today. For me, I always thought that 59 and a half was the date when I could access my 401k. I did the math. I had the date written down of when that date would occur, and that is what I thought about. Then one day in 2017, I learned this little hack that starting at age 55, I could access my 401k. Mind blown. It really sounded too good to be true. And it is very difficult to find information on this. And it sounded so much too good to be true that I really struggled to believe it. Well, eventually I found out that yes, it is actually true. So I want to share that experience with you and tell you a little bit about the Rule of 55. I want to talk about what it is. I want to talk about how it works, talk about how I am using it in our early retirement. And then if you hang on to the end, I've got some pretty good reasons why you might not want to do this. Well, first of all, what is the Rule of 55? It's really quite simple. It's an IRS provision that says that if you get laid off, if you get fired, or you leave your job for really any reason starting the calendar year that you turn 55, you can access your employer-sponsored 401k with no penalty. That's right, you don't have to pay the 10% tax penalty for early withdrawal. That is it. Just those two things. Isn't that amazing? Well, as with anything, there are some nuances as far as how it actually works. And as someone who has actually done it, I'd love to tell you how it worked for me. The first thing was that, I mentioned before, starting at the age of 55 is when you can do that. I turned 55 in the spring in May. So really, it's the calendar year. So starting in January of that year, turning 55, I qualified to do the Rule of 55 withdrawal. Well, that's pretty awesome. The next thing is that the fund must be from your employer. So if you have a 401k sitting out there from a previous employer, or maybe you have an IRA or something, those do not apply. It's only the 401k from the employer that you were employed with at the time of termination. The next thing is that you have to pay taxes. Government's still going to want those taxes. You have deferred in your account unless it's a Roth, and you still got to pay some taxes on it. So in my particular case, when the funds were taken out, 20% in income tax was taken out off the top by Fidelity, which is who I use, and 5% in state tax was taken out right off the top. Your taxes might be different. It's something you'll want to check with your 401k administrator to find out for sure. The other thing that's really important is that you cannot separate from the company, roll your 401k over to an IRA, and then be able to take the money out. That is pretty critical. Once you've rolled it over into an IRA, it's locked again until you're 59 and a half. So you want to be very, very careful of that. I have talked to a lot of people about the Rule 55, and very often I run into folks that get real excited about it and then realize they cannot access that money because they did do a rollover. So that is pretty simple on how it works. I mentioned I'm with Fidelity, and it was just amazing with the Fidelity tool how easy it was. I just went in, typed in how much I wanted to have after taxes. It showed me the dollar amount there, how much I needed to take out in order to get what I wanted after taxes, and boom, within a few days, I had the deposit. Awesome. The next question is, how am I actually using the Rule of 55 in our early retirement? In January, I took a withdrawal from the account. I mentioned that 20% in taxes was taken off the top for federal, and 5% was taken out for the state. And I took out a one-time withdrawal. It's all I plan to do for this year. And I used it to do a couple things. The first thing I did was for my 2023 Roth, I still had some margin there to fill. So I filled that bucket up and met the maximum in Roth since I would not qualify to add to my Roth this year. And then my HSA, my HA plan for 2024, I totally funded that. So I funded my Roth, I funded my HSA. Next, I took a portion of that withdrawal and I beefed up our emergency account, just that cash account in case something would happen. That was it for this year. For 2024, I have a pretty stable year. I'm on COBRA for my health care. I have a pretty good set budget. And so I think I'm good as far as withdrawing for this year. Now in 2025, I actually do not plan on doing any withdrawals from my 401k plan using the Rule 55 because of other things that I'm going to do, and we'll talk about that in a future video. So that is how I am using it. It sounds like a pretty good plan, right? Well, maybe not. You know, for many of you, there are some reasons why doing a Rule of 55 withdrawal is maybe a terrible idea. So I wanted to cover those as well. The first thing is that you will lose compounding. You will lose growth. The amount of money that I took out in January, which was significant relative to how much I actually need, for the rest of this year, no matter what the stock market does, if it keeps going up like it's been doing since I took that money out, I am not going to benefit from it because I parked most of that just in cash as part of my emergency fund. Really a high yield savings account, but not as much a return potentially had I left it in my mutual funds. On the inverse side of that, if the stock market were to crash at some point this year, I've got that money protected. So that really helped me mentally for this year. Another reason you might want to not do this, it kind of depends on your 401k administration, who you have your 401k with. I mentioned I'm with Fidelity. I'm very happy with the options that I have within Fidelity, the funds that I have. But you might be on a terrible plan with very high fees, high administrative costs, those type of issues. Another thing is that your employer may not allow this. You want to make absolutely sure that even though the rule exists within the IRS, that your employer does allow it. Here's what I did. I contacted the 401k administrator of my company and asked them about it. And I did this in writing. I wanted a response back in writing verifying that I could actually do this. Prior to doing that, I also read through the 401k plan. I actually couldn't find anything referencing the Rule of 55. So that is why I thought it was very important to have the administrator send me that message. In my particular case, I can do the 401k withdrawal using the Rule of 55 at any time, as many times as I want to, no constraints. There are some employers that will only allow you to do that once a year. My employer before this one, that was their rule. There are some, for whatever reason, won't allow it at all. And there are some that will require you to take all the money out at once. My point is with that, it's very important before you even think about this, that you verify in advance what the rules are for your plan at your organization. Another thing, a reason why you might not want to do this, is you might not be able to afford it. Perhaps you haven't saved enough to cover your expenses. Perhaps you need that money to keep growing and you're going to go ahead and get another job, something like that. It's really important that you understand your budget and everything else that surrounds the money that you need to successfully retire early. So that is it. It's that simple. The Rule of 55. Now, I did a lot of work to learn about this. This is a very short video. So a couple things I'm going to do. Down in the description, I'm going to place a few links to different resources to help you learn even deeper about the Rule of 55. I highly recommend that you go in and look at that. Recommend you check with your employer to see what their guidelines are with it. And then also, hang on. This video is going to generate some great comments. If you're someone who is very familiar with the Rule of 55, perhaps you have used it yourself, or you have it as part of your retire early plan, please leave some comments on your feedback on how it has worked for you. What makes it work well, and continue on that discussion about why you might not want to do this. Thank you for watching the video. If you got any value out of this at all, I very much appreciate it. If you do the whole thumbs up, give me that like. If you share, do the comments, all those type of things. I really appreciate it. It helps the channel a lot. Thank you, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.